authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. This is Minnesota Black Robe Regiment Podcast, MBRR Podcast, here on YouTube. And yeah, basically just YouTube, because I do so much video related content that putting it out on audio only platforms just does not behoove viewership. So we've got several people watching already. Got Northern Sasquatch, Patrick Dennis watching. We got Juggalasis. He's on here is watching as well. If you guys would share this out, this is a really important show. As many of you know, all of my stuff is important because I wouldn't do it if it wasn't at least important to me. And whether or not it's important to you, just, quite frankly, doesn't matter to me as much because I am self-centered and selfish. Yeah, because I get so much out of doing this, right? But yeah, while I'm waiting for notifications to go out so people can tune in and watch, I'm just going to go through all of the rigmarole. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. If you have subscribed, check the bell icon so you make sure that you are getting notifications. Find the like button, give it a thumbs up. Find the share button, share this out. And then down below, you will also see a little thing that says join. And the reason join is really important is because becoming a channel member gives you access to some behind the scenes stuff. I've been putting videos out that are exclusively available to channel members. I call them my Act-Localist. And along with it being exclusively available to the channel members, they also get sneak peeks to videos at least 3 to 4 hours, if not more, before I put those videos out for all the general public to watch. So that helps because it's a regular monthly fee that you pay to be a channel member. It's support, if you will. It helps keep things going. If you don't like to do business with Google or YouTube, then I also have a channel or a page on Subscribestar that's set up kind of the You see there, Juggalassa says becoming a member has saved or changed his life. I would add saved his life, but what do you know? Thanks, Jugs. I really appreciate that. Folks, we are getting an unexpected, well, I shouldn't say unexpected. I knew it was coming. I just didn't realize when it was coming and how severe it was going to be. So we are getting a bit of a thunderstorm. So without any further ado, I am going to launch into this. Well, actually, a little bit more ado. If you are a channel member and you're interested in becoming a top tier channel member, that gives you producer credits for the show. Any of my pre-recorded videos, any of my streamed videos, you will get channel membership credit for being a show producer, and your name will be highlighted in the credits of the video and during the show. In the meantime, if you can't find a way to do channel memberships, but you want to say thank you, if you're watching this on playback, you can send a super thank you. And if you're watching this live and you want to send a super chat, you can do that, especially if you have a question and you want me to see it. That's great. In the meanwhile, as we're going, I want you guys to be, like I said, share this out. This is really important information. It's breaking news, literally breaking news right now. No one else has this news. No one else has shared this news. So what we're going to be doing is some breaking news. So share this out and talk amongst yourselves. As moderators, you guys know my standards. If you are a channel mod, I do not believe in censoring anyone unless they start spamming us with unnecessary links to things that have nothing to do with this channel or what we're talking about, or they start in with just foolishness and then I will just let you guys know. I'll give you the signal, and we can get rid of those people. But other than that, if somebody wants to come back and push back against me, push back about what I have to say, they don't like what I have to say, that's fine. I appreciate that. So, and I do appreciate feedback. So I'm open as always. So let's see here. This foolishness, he says. But yeah, let's get on with this. And once again, if you are watching, say hi in the chat. The chat moderators love to chat with the viewers, and let me know if I'm saying anything that's new or anything that, or not saying what you think I need to say, if there's something that needs to be said. So anyway, a few weeks ago, I did a video about Deputy Flatten from the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office. And the reason I did a video about him was I heard that he had wrecked a squad car. And I'm going to read the report from that real quick for you guys. And it's just a very brief report, just as a reminder of what had happened in that situation. Well, maybe I'm going to read it. Everything's taken a while with the weather doing what it's doing. So, long story short, it was a single squad accident. And the way the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office had initially portrayed this accident, it was very much an issue of, he just went off the road. There was a bad accident. The car rolled, and he had to be extracted from the vehicle by EMS, and then he was transported to the hospital, life flighted to the hospital. But when you go and you read what the State Patrol had to say about it, here's the explanation. This took place on July 18th at 6:24 p.m. And the one-line narrative reads like this. The Ford Explorer was southbound on County Road 4 when it entered the southbound ditch at 1st Avenue East. Now, I don't know this area, so those of you who are watching who are familiar with the area are going to understand this. Entered the southbound ditch at 1st Avenue East. The Ford Explorer vaulted 1st Avenue East and rolled before coming to rest in a field southwest of the intersection. It was on dry conditions. Atwater Fire Department, Wilmer Police Department, Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office were the responding agencies. It was Christopher Todd Flatten at age 39, non-life-threatening injuries. He's transported to St. Cloud Hospital. Seatbelt was unknown at the time. Helmet not applicable. Alcohol involved unknown. Now, please pay attention because this will come in very handy. So, when we go back to that event here on their page, this is how it reads on their page. On July 18th, 2024 at 6:21 p.m., the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office received a report of a one-vehicle rollover on County Road 4 just south of 1st Avenue East in Genesee Township. Deputies learned that a Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office squad operated by a on-duty Kandiyohi County Sheriff's deputy was traveling southbound on County Road 4 when it left the road and overturned. EMS personnel extricated the deputy, who was then transported by Lifelink Air to the St. Cloud Hospital. The deputy suffered non-life-threatening injuries and is in stable condition. The crash is being investigated by the Minnesota State Patrol. Yada, yada, yada. Sheriff Eric Tollefson. Now, there have been no other updates, folks. None. Not a single update about this situation. No updates about, they never released his name. We had to do our digging and find this on our own. They never released his name. They did not tell us who he was. They did not tell us anything else about an investigation. They did not say anything about whether or not he's been sent home from the hospital. We don't know if if he's back on duty. We don't know any of these things. Now, the reason that this has become important is because, as I did in the video originally, and Jugs, I don't know if you got your system up and working at that right place yet, but if you could go and find the link to the original video, and folks, the original video will be linked to the description of this video in the hours, maybe a day following this. And I will also be including some screenshots both on social media and on my YouTube channel in the post section of the community tab. Deputy Flatten used to be Officer Flatten of the Wilmer Police Department. And Deputy Flatten, when he was Officer Flatten, had been with Wilmer for 18 years. In, I believe it was May of 2022, then Officer Flatten approached an African American male, wrongly identified him as someone who he wasn't, began to question him and harass him, called for backup. By the way, his body cam was never on. Called for backup, and a Kandiyohi deputy responded, as well as an unmarked vehicle with 2 other law enforcement officers in it. These officers began to, basically beat the crap out of this gentleman, then arrested him and charged him with obstruction, if I remember correctly, and let him suffer under the burden of pending charges for 6 months. 6 months. Before those charges were ultimately dismissed by the Kandiyohi County attorney. So 6 months. So they criminally assaulted this private individual walking down the road on his way to work, criminally assaulted him, criminally imprisoned him. Wrongful imprisonment is criminal, folks. If you imprison somebody against their will, which is what imprisonment is, but if you wrongfully detain someone, which in Minnesota you have the ability to execute a citizen's arrest, but if it's determined that you wrongfully arrest them or detain them, that's a crime. That's a crime. So we have criminal assault on this gentleman. We have wrongful imprisonment of this gentleman. We have criminal prosecution, malicious prosecution of this gentleman that stretched out months. And then went nowhere. It went nowhere other than this gentleman, through his attorney, has filed suit. And that suit was filed just after Officer Flatten left the employ of the Wilmer Police Department and went to work for the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office. So what we're seeing a shuffle. And we see this shuffle happen all the time, my friends. We see this frequently. It was Wilmer admitted that Officer Flatten was wrong, that he violated policy and procedure, that he needed some more training. But then they also stated that this poor man just happened to be black in the right place at the right time. And basically, that's just what happens when you're black in Wilmer. Not making. You can go to the ACLU website and look this up. Those are the words of the Wilmer Police Department statement, that it just so happens that he just happened to be black, and it was unfortunate for him that he was black in Wilmer, because that's what happens. And this lawsuit is still pending. It has not gone fully into litigation yet. So they've admitted that there was a problem. And they had to know there was going to be there was going to be civil litigation coming their way. And so they shuffled, they pulled some strings, and Officer Chris Flatten left his position of 18 years there and then went to work for the sheriff of Kandiyohi County, went to work for We the People of Kandiyohi County. Now, I'm in conversation with an individual who is no longer in the law enforcement world, who looked at it, and he's looking at this situation. He understands the rank structure and the command structure and administration structure of Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office. And I asked him, what do you think? Would you have hired Chris Flatten if this had been you? And this individual, who heretofore will go unnamed, said, not until that case was resolved, fully resolved. Now, why are we doing an update on this? Because individuals that I am in communication with who have multiple complaints against Kandiyohi, multiple complaints against other law enforcement agencies, including Wilmer, the current Kandiyohi command structure, under the current sheriff, have been reaching out to me. I mean, I cannot keep caught up, folks. Like, you would not believe, and I'm not I like, keep it coming, folks. Just be patient with me. I'm one man who works a full-time job and has a life outside of what I do here. Although this, the income that I get from YouTube and whatnot does help pay the bills. I do have a full-time job that I have to go to. Otherwise, there will be not this. There will be like this will not be a thing. Literally dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of messages from individuals, dozens of emails from individuals, file after file after file after file after file after file after file of things that are going wrong in Kandiyohi County, and to include all of the law enforcement structure there. We're talking about criminal level malfeasance, lying under oath, falsifying reports, colluding with individuals to deprive people of their rights under the color of law. Literally, deprivation of rights under the color of law has happened. We're talking about USC 18 USC violations here. These are like federal level crimes when someone who takes an oath to the Constitution to protect the Constitution of the United States, to protect the Republic from enemies foreign and domestic, and then swears an oath to the Constitution of the state of Minnesota, on and on and on. This is what we're talking about. And so I'm getting all these messages, and that's what helped me make this link to Kandiyohi Deputy Flatten, to Wilmer Officer Flatten, and his criminal constitutional abuse of this individual who was just walking down the street minding his own. Who, by the way, I'm in communication with that individual as well. The story's not going away. But another individual is kind of working as my leg man for me and doing data requests and whatnot, and they're not getting paid. I'm going to double their pay from what I was paying them earlier today, which was nothing. So I'm doubling that, which is kind of how much Juggalassus gets paid for being the most frequent moderator on the channel. So this individual sent in a data practices request, which is kind of like what you would call FOIA, to the Minnesota State Patrol, asking them, what's the status of this investigation. And he just got the response back on the 3rd, and the response was, Minnesota State Patrol has reviewed your request and determined that we are unable to release the requested data for the following reasons. This is still an open investigation. If you are a party to this case, direct your request to the prosecutor. Minnesota State Patrol considers this request closed. If you wish to obtain this information at a later date, please create a new request at least 30 days from now to see if the status of this data has changed. If you have any questions or need additional information, please feel free to reply to this email. Now, what's really important here? Really, really, really important here. Minnesota State Patrol has reviewed your request and determined that we are unable to release this requested data for this following reasons. This is still an open investigation. If you are a party to this case, direct your request to the prosecutor. So, in conversing with this individual, I'm like, I think we need to do some digging. I said, why don't we email the Kandiyohi County Attorney and see what the county attorney has to say? And that individual did that. And this was where is it at? Folks, bear with me. IR professional, you know. Well, here, let me read it from the place where I know I can find it easy. So, dear so and so, this message is in regard to the above reference request for data including all reports and officers involved in one vehicle rollover with Kandiyohi County squad car while on duty. Meeker County will be the prosecutor on this case. Our case number is 246050251. 2460251. I do not know what Meeker County's case number is. If you have any questions or need additional information, please feel free to reply to this email. So, what you have is an official representative of the Kandiyohi County prosecutors um, stating that there is a prosecutor that has been assigned to prosecute this situation involving an on-duty Deputy Christopher Flatten of the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office, which means that the State Patrol believed there was enough there for it to be referenced to prosecution for looking at for charges. Now, here's what we don't know. Nothing. We know nothing. We don't know what their suggestion for charges is in this situation. But here's some of the speculation. And when I say speculation, this is coming from, for lack of better terminology, from some very reliable sources who cannot be named right now because these people are, they need to be protected. But the initial report from the scene of the accident and subsequent to that is that Christopher Flatten, this deputy, refused to cooperate with testing for drugs or alcohol. Those are the reports. Now, granted, it's hearsay because we don't have anything. We can't get the body cams. We can't get any written reports. They're not giving anything up. But there are reports that alcohol was involved. There are reports that he refused testing. Which, when you look at Minnesota is an implied consent state, and just so everybody understands, if your state is an implied consent state, it basically means that if you're going to have a driver's license, operate a motor vehicle in the state of Minnesota, you agree to comply with testing. So let that sink in. You have a deputy in a county who is responsible for safety and security of the roadways and understands implied consent and knows that failure to submit to testing can be a charge in and of itself. He then is reportedly once again, bear with me. The weather is causing a few issues with connectivity. Um, Dude, Facebook just restricted me for sharing this and removed it. I don't know. They don't like you, Pat. Indy says, I would bet dollars to donuts that body cams were muted at some point during this investigation. Yes, absolutely. He also knows that long-term refusal is not as significant as DUI. Exactly. Then they lose their license for like 2 years. Well, it depends. It depends on the state and all of that. So let's see here. He said he sent me screenshots. I don't have any messages saying that I'm just not saying that mine's been taken down. I don't know. It must. Yeah, see, guys, that's why we call it Monday Night Musings. Um, I really don't know. That is so weird. I I don't I don't know why that showing is taken down for you. Weird. Um, yeah. But anyway, so here you have this deputy who's responsible for not only protecting, pulling people over for speeding, but responsible for enforcing DUI laws in Minnesota, knows what the consequences are, knows what implied consent is, refuses to give his consent, and it's implied. As a deputy, you have a driver's license and you're a law enforcement officer tasked with enforcing the codes and the laws of the state of Minnesota, and he refuses. So at the very least, if this is true, if there is a suspicion of alcohol and he refused, or a suspicion of alcohol use as part of this accident, contributing factor to this accident. And folks, we got to let something sink in about this accident as well. You have to absolutely understand this. The way the sheriff wrote it up versus the way the state patrol wrote it up, two totally different experiences here. The sheriff is like, oh, he left the road, he rolled his car in the ditch, yada, yada, yada. The state patrol literally stated that this vehicle vaulted the road. So in other words, just think about this. He's going this way. Here's the crossroad, the intersecting road. He leaves the road, goes in the ditch, goes up, vaults the highway, rolls the car in the process, and it rolls on the other side of the road. So he clears the road. That's the vaulted the road. Does not he was airborne. That's how fast he was going. He was airborne. Then refuses, allegedly, reportedly, rumor has it, refuses to test, provide a breath sample or anything else. So at the very least, they have him on they could be charging him at the very least with criminal negligence for the way he was driving. Like, there's no way that his speed was any lower than 80 in an accident like this. Can you imagine if somebody had been going by on that intersecting road at that time? We'd be having another Minnesota State Patrol Shane Roper situation on our hand. We're fortunate as a state. We're fortunate as the tax wage slaves in the state of Minnesota and across the United States, really, that there was no other vehicle, and that was just Deputy Flatten. But this man had to have gone airborne, which means he was doing no less than 80 miles an hour, probably far more. Then he had to be extricated from this vehicle. And then Life Flight had to come in and fly him to St. Cloud from this area. I mean, this is asinine. Absolutely asinine. And we still don't have the body cams. We still don't have the dash cams. We still don't have the reports. But we do know that it has been turned over to another county to get a decision on prosecution. And Teresa's absolutely right in the chat. She says, all on the state's dime. Like, if this is determined that Deputy Flatten was driving under the influence of alcohol and then refused to test, he should have to pay for all of this. He should pay for yeah, the weather is getting pretty rough here. He should have to pay for the vehicle. He should have to pay for all of the services. All of that should have to come out of his pocket, or at least, whatever the deductible for his health insurance is. This should not be coming out of the pockets of the taxpayers. But here's something else. No one knows. No one's talking as to whether or not he's been placed on paid administrative leave or administrative leave at all at this point. I see Emily is laughing at I don't know, she's laughing at the conversation or what I'm saying, and she wants to know why would they provide that? I don't know, Emily. It depends on what you want to know what they should provide. Here's, depending on what you're talking about, Emily, he's a public servant. These people are supposed to be above reproach, especially when they're on duty. Absolutely should be above reproach when he's on duty. And they should have no protection in these situations. Everything that they do when they're on duty should automatically be subject to public scrutiny. Now, Jugs and I think it was Jugs, but one of my regular viewers said at one time that he thinks that body cam should be streaming 100% of the streaming for public review. I take some exception to that. I think there are certain reasons why there should be some delays to that. But I don't think there should be any such thing as we can't release this body cam footage. We can't release this dash cam footage. Because for damn sure, if this wasn't somebody that was part of their thin blue line family, this would have already been released. There would have been a statement from the sheriff's office and the state patrol about pending charges, the recommendation for charges, and the dash cam or any body cam would have been released. It would have, because we've seen it over and over and over again. Agency after agency after agency after agency in the state of Minnesota has no problem telling you about the criminals that they've busted, has no problem giving you fine details. You want to go back just a few months on my channel to the City of Rochester, Minnesota Police Department, where they flat out gave you just detail after detail after detail after detail about a guy who was a SA predator. But they gave us no details about Shane Roper at all. We still don't have the body cam and dash cam video of that. By the way, we're not letting that story go either, because we know that Mark Ostrom in Olmsted County loves to cut deals. So we know for a fact that he's working to cut deals with Shane Roper. And I can almost guarantee you that there's going to be, if there are charges pending or going to be charges against Deputy Flatten here in Kandiyohi County through Meeker County, is that they're going to be looking for a loophole around this. They're going to be looking for a way out of this. And I'm telling you right now, if the sheriff was really wanting to be above board, he would have announced publicly on his Facebook page and other social media and through a press release, would have announced the State Patrol has concluded their part of the investigation and they have turned over their reports to local prosecution. And in the interim, Deputy Flatten has been placed on administrative leave without pay pending the resolution of this case. We clearly have criminal activity happening. And yes, he has a right to his day in court. He absolutely has a right to his day in court. The state needs to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Deputy Flatten was guilty of a crime. They need to do that. We don't have to do that. We don't have to err on that. We're not obligated to give him the benefit of the doubt. Because what we have, and we're going to be digging into this, we're going to be having some people dig into this as well. We're going to be digging into former Officer Flatten's record and Deputy Flatten's record. We're going to be looking to see what other kind of discipline he's had in his life. We're going to be looking to see if he's had any other incidences with wrecked vehicles. We're going to be looking to see if he's been reprimanded for excessive speed or reckless driving, reckless vehicle operation. We're going to be looking at any of that. We're going to look to see if he's had issues with alcohol on duty in the past, no matter where he was at. Because that stuff should be public. Because if this was somebody else who was driving and they had a history of driving under the influence of alcohol, they would have released that on that individual. But we don't have a right to know about Deputy Flatten. Folks, this kind of stuff is why these things are so important. Now, I had somebody, and I don't think they're in the chat, and they're not somebody that I've been communicating with today, but I had somebody reach out to me, and they said, I really appreciate the fact that you covered this story here in Kandiyohi County. Nobody's been paying attention to it. Why what, Emily? You can't just say why. You have to tell me why you're saying why. What's the why for? I had somebody else reach out, like I said, to me and say, we're really glad that you covered this the way you did and when you did, because we don't think that this would have gone anywhere if there hadn't been some sort of attention brought to it. Emily, why is a story like this important? Because they are the enforcement arm of the state, Emily. They're supposed to be responsible for protecting and serving. They're supposed to be responsible for keeping the streets free of crime and criminality. They're supposed to, especially deputies and state patrol officers in particular, are really supposed to be responsible for safe traveling. That's their number one priority. State patrol, that's pretty much all they are responsible for. And then county, yeah, they do some criminal enforcement, but they also do a lot of traffic enforcement. And if we are to trust them to treat us with decency and objectivity and to hold us accountable for the traffic codes, and we can't trust them to not be violating traffic codes when no one's watching them, then they shouldn't have the job. That's why this is important. Oh, Heidi Rivers, thank you very much for... Heidi Rivers joined the channel. Wow, Heidi, that was not expecting that tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much. That actually means a lot to me. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is why I do what I do. Like, Emily, I'm not like I see you said, I understand he's slime. Right, he's slime. Is that who we want? Sucking off the taxpayer's tit? Like, really? Like, this, just think about this. Like, I will tell you this. I know this is going to offend the few friends that I have left in law enforcement. I really do. I understand that this is really going to offend them. But public service does not attract the best. And people need to understand this. Barry, Indy News on the Street will back me up on this 100%. He is a former cop in Indianapolis. Law enforcement and public service in general does not attract the best of the best. It just doesn't. Now, does that mean that there aren't really high achieving people in public service? Sure, there are. Barry would have been an example of a high achiever in public service. I had somebody say to me, like, dude, you were a high achiever in public. But it just does not, by and large, attract the best of the best because it's high pay. It's a high, like, anybody who tells you that people in the public sector don't make enough money, especially cops, that they don't get paid enough to do what they do, like, trust me, that's bull. It's bogus. It's a bogus claim. It's propaganda. And they make their money. Off of the back of wage slaves by then also victimizing wage slaves for things that are victimless crimes. Now, is DUI a victimless crime? I would tell you that for me, I believe when you get behind the wheel and you're drunk, that to me is attempted murder. I believe that. And I'd be a liar if I said I never got behind the wheel of the vehicle and probably had a beer or two more than I should have. I'm not going to tell you that. I have made a vow that I'm not going to do that ever again. But when a person who is trusted with the public trust to be that person who protects us from people who make those decisions, be it through negligence or through intentionality or malice, those people need to be held to a much higher standard. There should be no wiggle room in there. No wiggle room for anybody who has a badge and a gun. This man who bear with me, folks. This man who had a badge and a gun 2 years ago used his authority, used his badge, used his gun to victimize an innocent person walking down the street on his way to work. National Weather Service tornado warning in this area until 9:15 p.m. Take shelter now in a basement or an interior room on the lowest floor of a sturdy building. If you are outdoors in a mobile home or in a vehicle, move to the closest substantial shelter and protect yourself from flying debris. Check media. I don't know what area that is. I don't hear sirens going off. Hold on. Lots of rain, but I don't hear any sirens right now. I should probably leave one of these off. The reality of what's going on here in Kandiyohi County is protectionism. And this is just a cross section. of the entire mentality of law enforcement across the state of Minnesota and across the United States. And for those of you that are watching that are, maybe leaning leaning my way, but aren't quite sure that you're ready to say, it's as bad as TC says it is. Just bear with me, okay? Just go and peruse my channel. Watch video after video after video after video after video. If you don't believe me, watch my personal story of what my former employer, the sheriff of Olmsted County, did to me. I did nothing criminal. I just stood up in 2020 and 2021 for people's constitutionally delineated natural rights to be free from government tyranny. And they came after me for that. But they protected people who were guilty of criminal behavior. And in one case, after they came after me and I made the decision to take a settlement they offered me because they knew they were going to lose, they protected a deputy that was accused of SA against minor children, minor girls. They knew that he was doing this. They protected him for a year and a half before he actually got busted in another sting. The sheriff knew about his behavior. The sheriff knew what he was doing. Sheriff Kevin Torgerson knew what he was doing for a year and a half and kept him on the job, kept him working. And to this day still hasn't apologized for not stopping him. So don't tell me that it's just one or two bad apples. No, folks, there are dozens of bad apples out there all across the state. All across the United States. And I get this all the time. Well, don't paint with such a broad brush, You don't label all of them bad. Don't say that they're all bad. Look, I'm not saying all of them are bad. I'm just saying that how you define good when it comes to police or cops or deputies or troopers or whatever is not the way it should be defined. Because you say that that they are good cop if they aren't beating people up and if they're not breaking the law. But I will tell you that they are not good if they see the bad things happening and they don't do anything about it. That makes them bad. That makes them part of the problem. If they're not speaking publicly about the corruption, if they're not speaking publicly about the bad things that are happening, if they're not speaking publicly about the malfeasance and the violation of people's rights, if they're not speaking out about it publicly, if they're not holding them accountable for those things, they are bad. And it is the good ones who stand on their oaths, who take their oaths seriously, that law enforcement gets rid of. Sirens are going off now. I don't know what that means. So I guess what I would like to emphasize to you guys through all of this is that when you become aware of these things, I don't care if you're in the town or the community or the county or the state where this is happening. First thing it should do is it should make you look at your own area. Look at your own area. But when you can reach out to another area where you're aware of these stories, so like in this situation, if you can reach out to Kandiyohi County Sheriff, if you can reach out to Meeker County, to the prosecutor there, to the county attorney, and demand that they do something about this, then do that. Demand that they make sure they hold this guy accountable. This is why I do what I do. And I have done this for people all over the United States. I personally have traveled down to Waterloo, Iowa, to take part in a very peaceful protest on behalf of Bo Bish, Flex Your Freedoms, when he was wrongfully imprisoned. Wrongfully imprisoned for exercising his natural right to freedom of speech and press by the Waterloo Police Department. I have covered the story of Nathan and Samantha down in Bellevue, Iowa. I have covered countless stories here in the state of Minnesota, countless stories in other places across the United States. Yeah, I know it's a tornado warning, but I'm stupid. I don't panic over tornadoes. I'm a terrible person. I, I like I just live in a place where if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. uh, it's just imagine imagine how popular this video would be if, if you guys saw me get wiped out. Um, Emily says, "What about the chickens?" Oh, I know who that is now. They're in their they're in their hut. There's nothing I can do about the chickens in a rainstorm. There's just nothing I can do. They're huddled together in their shed. They'll be fine. Yeah, I agree with indie news on the street. We have 19 to 20 people watching, and we only have 6 people giving thumbs up. Everyone, please hit the thumbs up. You know what? I agree. I agree. Oh, chickens do not care. They're literally there. I guarantee you, they're asleep already. If I went out there right now, they'd be mad at me for interrupting them. They're all in their shed. They put themselves away in the dark. Um, Look, I've been going on about this for 50 minutes, but it's because I cannot emphasize enough how much we need people to pay attention to this. Like, we need people reaching out to Meeker County and the prosecuting attorney there, demanding full transparency of what's happening and whether or not there are charges and why they're not charging and we want to see the body cam and we want to see the dash cam. We want to hear it all. We want to read the reports. All of it. You don't get to protect him because he's a victim of this accident. He caused the accident. We need the sheriff to tell us why he's not out on administrative leave. Why he hasn't named the deputy in the accident yet. We're talking a month, basically. I mean, 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Um, there's got to be something that we can do. This is it's ridiculous that we're 3 weeks. If this, like I said before, if this had been anybody else, it'd been anybody else at all, we would know. Here it is. I want to show this. David Boland, I appreciate you telling the truths about the behavior in this county. I didn't believe it until I witnessed it myself. David, your story is. Can you give contacts and numbers? Actually, yeah, Teresa, I will put contacts and numbers in the description of the video. Don't feel bad, David. That's a pretty normal thing, and I think it's because we've been inculcated and propagandized to the point where we just we're always told to look at law enforcement in this heroic way, that they're just a hero the minute they put that uniform on in the morning and head off to their duty day. They are to their shift. They're a hero. And I was probably 6 years out from the end of my career when I kind of got to the point where I didn't want people to call me a hero anymore. Because you're not a hero for just putting your uniform on and going and doing your job. And Barry will back me up on this. Like, in fact, to be called a hero as a cop takes, and it's the same with soldiers. I know countless American military veterans who will tell you, I'm not a hero for having been in the military, whether I served in a war zone or not. I have a really good friend here in Minnesota. Her name is Rebecca Whiting, who is running for U.S. Senate against Amy Klobuchar and whoever the Republicans decide that they're going to throw up there to be a sacrificial lamb to Amy Klobuchar. And Rebecca is a combat veteran. 2 tours in Iraq as a combat medic. And she and I have talked about this, and she tells people all the time, we're not heroes. We're not heroes. And it's the way cops should think too. Showing up to do your job does not make you a hero, and doing your job, even in the face of somebody who might be aggressive, doesn't make you a hero. Being a hero is doing something that's counterintuitive to the position that you're in at great risk of severe bodily harm or death. And so when a cop gets into his car and he goes down the road and he pulls somebody over who's doing 135 and a 55, that's not heroic. He's doing his job. Now, if a cop sees somebody doing 135 miles an hour and they're headed for a bus full of kids and the cop takes off, it does 140, 160, catches that person doing 135 and they're headed for a bus full of kids, and then cuts that vehicle off, risking his own life to stop that vehicle from hitting a bus full of kids, that's a heroic action. I want you to look at Uvalde. And we heard people like Brandon Tatum and Donut Operator talking so much about how heroic the cops were when they showed up to Uvalde, and that we didn't understand what they were going through, and that they had all these decisions that they had to make, and that they didn't have a duty to go and put themselves in needless risk to die just to try and take this guy out when the damage was already done. I mean, I literally heard people like Brandon Tatum say that stuff. Brandon Tatum literally screamed at people for calling the cops cowards. And then gave this very detailed cop-splaining explanation of why those cops were actually heroes. You just don't understand how they were heroic. No, they weren't. They were cowards. Because their duty in that situation was to end the threat. And they didn't. Instead, they arrested parents and tased parents. And so what we have going on, and all of this, that's how we're trained to see them. And that I want, David to understand, like, you're not alone. That's how we're trained to see them. We're trained to see them as heroes all the time. And there's a saying in the community now, and Barry will finish this with me, and Jugalassis will finish this with me. Back the blue until it happens to you. And that's all it takes. Is one time of it happening to you before you go, what the French toast is happening here? Why is it necessary for me to back these people? Aren't my tax dollars enough to back them? Isn't that enough support? How much more do they need from me? So David, I would love to hear your personal story. If you're on Facebook, you can message me on Facebook if you want to. Send me your story, what happened, what your experience was. I won't, share it unless you want me to share it. But David, if you're watching and you want to share your story with me, you can email me at mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. Folks, it's really important for us to make sure that everyone understands that we can do this. That's why my channel members are called Act-Localist. The place where you can have the most impact on reforming public service, whether it be the elected public servants like the sheriff, or those who are appointed public servants like his deputies, or county attorneys that are elected, or the people he has working for them, the assistant county attorneys, which are appointed, or your county commissioners, or your city councils. The place that you can have the most impact is locally. But then your impact can spread out by helping other people take up the mantle of acting locally and saying, we're going to come alongside of you. We're going to help you. And then when we have a situation in our area, you come help us. That's why I do what I do. Yeah, back to blue until they beat you black and blue. Which is what Officer Flatten, when he was in Wilmer did to the individual who I've been in contact with lately. I'm telling you right now that Deputy Flatten, before he was Deputy Flatten, when he was Officer Flatten, there's something more in his history. These are not one-off situations. And I guarantee you, Barry will back me up on that as well. When Officer Flatten decided to beat up an individual and wrongfully imprison him and punitively charge him with a crime that he didn't commit, he had done it before. He had treated people that way before and gotten away with it. Because it was this one individual who stood up and said, "You're not going to do this to me. I will not take a plea deal. I will fight this. I will fight this." That's a hero. That's who the hero is in these stories. The hero, and his name is out there in the ACLU report. His last name is Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert is a hero. I'm telling you right now, Mr. Gilbert, if you're watching this, you're the hero. You're the one who stood up to this. You're the one who made all of this possible by saying enough is enough. You're the one who said you don't get to treat people like this. I am going to make you be held accountable. And good on you, sir. God bless you for doing that. God bless you for being bold enough to say it's probably going to cost me my freedom again. Because if we know one thing, the minute you go after cops and you start holding them accountable, they look for reasons to target you. Ask anybody who's left law enforcement because when they go out and start holding former law enforcement or former members of the law enforcement career field, when you start holding your former co-workers, your former or blue line buddies accountable, they turn on you in a flash. So, Mr. Gilbert, you're the hero. Don't, and I will never let anybody tell me that the cops in Wilmer and the deputies in Kandiyohi County are the heroes and you're not. That you just happen to be in the wrong place or at the right place at the right time as a black man in Wilmer. No, the heroes are the ones who stand up and say enough of this crap. And there are people in law enforcement who do that. There's Detective Matt Thorson. Watch his videos. He does dozens of shorts a week. Watch his stuff. Watch his content. It's vitally important that people see there are some, and he's one of the good ones. Yeah, random culture. Always film the police. Chris Milkey, thanks for stopping in. I've said as much as I can say, other than we know that the State Patrol has concluded their investigation and that they have turned this over, and Meeker County is handling the charging decision. Now it's on us, folks. And it's on you people in Kandiyohi County. And it's on you people in Wilmer and other places. I'm telling you right now, more than anything, all the rest of us are going to do our part to support you. Everybody who's doing what they can over there in Kandiyohi County, we're going to help you, but this is on you. You guys have got to take the bull by the horns here. You have got to put so much pressure, and I mean constant pressure, on their social media pages, phone calls, emails, data requests. You have to all get involved. You have to start showing up at county board meetings. You have to show up at city council meetings. You have to go and you have to demand accountability. You have to make sure that this deputy pays the price, that he loses his career at the least, and at the in best case scenario, that he loses his freedom and he never works as a cop in Minnesota again or anywhere else. And we will help you, but you guys have got to take the bull by the horns, and you have got to be the ones leading this charge. And you can't let people cow you on this. Ask yourselves, how many people who are average Joes, just regular schmucks, how many would still be free, not have been charged. We all know damn well there's no way that this would have taken this long to get to a prosecuting attorney to have a decision made on whether or not there were going to be charges filed. And we don't even know that charges are going to be filed. I'm thinking they're probably going to, because I think that you guys, with the asset of my content, have been able to bring enough pressure on there that people are paying attention over there in Kandiyohi County. But if we hadn't done this, if you all hadn't reached out to me, if you all hadn't told me, hey, there's more to this story than you think, keep digging, and I kept digging, and so we did the initial story, and now we're doing this story. So all of this stuff is going to help them. But you guys have got to make sure Meeker County sees this. You guys have got to make sure the sheriff sees this, because we all know full well if this had been your average Joe private citizen, and by the way, cops are civilians too. I get sick of hearing that. Well, you civilians don't know. Cops are civilians. Cops are not non-civilians. They're not GIs. You guys have got to help this community out, but you have to help yourselves too. And I'm going to get ready to wrap up. And anybody who's interested in from Kandiyohi County and other places, anybody who wants to talk about this or wants to know if I can help them, send me an email, mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. I will respond as I have time. I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. I was going to cover another story here in the Rochester area that's taking place, but I don't want to push it, my luck with reception and everything else that's going on. But I do want to address something, and I want people to hear this here and everywhere else. I've been getting hundreds of messages and comments pushing back against me because people think I'm a left-wing nut. I'm not. I'm not a leftist. I'm not a progressive left Democrat. I'm not an all cops are bastard person. I just don't think all cops are good. I will reserve judgment on every cop until I see their actions. I approach every cop neutrally. They are our servants, and as such, they need to impress me. I do not need to impress them. But from there, I'm also not a radical back the blue. That's right, Jugs. Cops have become the standing army our forefathers warned us about. I've been saying that for years. But I'm also not a radical back the blue type. I'm not a back the blue at all costs. I am not the law and order type Republican that everybody would want me to be, because I'm not a Republican like everybody would want me to be. I am a paleo-conservative, paleo-libertarian philosopher. I lean towards anti-interventionism. I lean towards the smallest amount of government possible. I am an anarcho-capitalist. I do not believe the government, I prefer calling it the state. I don't believe the state at any of her levels does anything well. There's nothing that the state does well. Whether it's the city-state, the froze again. The state does nothing well. It doesn't do anything good. Everything the state touches, it screws up. Everything the state touches, it screws up. If somebody comes to me and says, but what about my roads? We can have a what about my roads conversation. Anybody that wants to talk to me about anything they think the state does, we will do a TC and Friends Monday Night Musings, and I will open up the chat for anybody to come on camera or just come on for audio and talk to me about why I'm wrong. I challenge you to name one thing that the state does right. Name one thing. And to that end, I don't trust anybody right now who's a major party candidate running for president in the United States. I damn sure don't trust Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris wrongfully prosecuted, wrongfully convicted, and wrongly held more black men in prison than almost any other prosecutor in the entire country in recent memory, outside of Amy Klobuchar, who was a prosecutor, by the way, and wrongfully convicted numerous minorities. But I don't trust Donald Trump either. That doesn't make me guilty of having Trump derangement syndrome. I don't trust him because Trump has demonstrated that he doesn't care about our constitutional rights. Two examples, just two. I can give you two right now. One, it's firearms. He doesn't understand the natural rights of man to keep and bear arms as it is delineated in the Second Amendment, because he says take their guns first and worry about their due process later. That's a violation of the Second Amendment. He banned bump stocks by fiat. Just by fiat, he banned bump stocks. Now that got overturned, but he pushes for red flag laws. Trump wants to give cops what he calls ultimate immunity. Right now, cops and every person in the public sector has qualified immunity by some definition or another. He wants to give them ultimate immunity. In other words, they can't even be prosecuted for a crime that they commit while they're on duty. That's what ultimate immunity would do. Qualified immunity protects them from civil cases. He wants to give them ultimate immunity. That needs to end. Trump loves those things. And when it comes to the First Amendment, he wants to imprison anybody who burns the American flag for 1 year. He wants anybody who burns the American flag to be put in prison for 1 year. Now, you're going, well, what's the problem with that? It's a First Amendment activity. You don't get to punish people for doing something that you don't like. And Trump wants to do that. We already know what the progressive left wants to do. Nobody's talking about what Trump will do. Because we're boiled down into a situation where we're told that the only thing that matters is not having 4 more years of Biden-Harris, and now it's 4 years of Harris. I agree. We don't want a repeat of Biden-Harris. We don't want Kamala Harris and whoever she picks for her running mate. We don't want that. That would be a disaster, an unmitigated disaster. But Trump would be an unmitigated disaster too, because his running mate wants to go to war with Iran. And I'm over here saying enough of all of this. No more qualified immunity, not just ultimate immunity. No more qualified for immunity for anybody in the public sector. No one. You want to go to work in the public sector? Get your own insurance. Or take your chances. No more wars. No more wars. No more bombing people. No more bombing countries that have no impact on us. We're done, folks. We're done. It all ends. No more coming for our guns. No more telling me that you're pro Second Amendment, but you want to support a guy who wants to take people's guns away and worry about their due process later. Like, no, I am philosophically consistent. It's not a derangement issue. I'm not deranged. I don't trust these people. Because when you give blind trust, you end up with corruption, and that's why we're having this conversation tonight. Kamala Harris is corrupt. She is corrupt. Biden was corrupt. Obama was corrupt. Donald Trump is corrupt. Not for the things that they charged him with, but because he's guilty of war crimes like every other president in the history of the modern United States. And he wants to commit more war crimes. But that's why we have corruption in sheriff's offices and police departments. That's why we have cops that feel like they could beat people up as they walk down the street and get away with it, because No one holds anybody in the public sector accountable, because you're all, not all of you guys that are watching, but so many of you are so fixated on this binary thought process that I'm a Democrat, therefore I have to hate all these things or love all these things, and I'm a Republican, therefore I have to hate or love all the things that these people hate or love. Well, Teresa, I appreciate what you're saying, that Kamala and Kelly will take over the Supreme Court and take our guns away, but they can't. They just can't do that. That to change the makeup of the Supreme Court is, they just don't have the power to change the makeup of the Supreme Court. And quite honestly, if you look at the Supreme Court, by and large, the Supreme Court is the reason we have so many problems. And it's honestly the reason we have so many problems because of the Supreme Court is because SCOTUS, even conservative judges, are the ones who make really bad decisions. SCOTUS gave us qualified immunity. Think about that. There's no law that creates qualified immunity. Qualified immunity was created by the courts, ultimately enshrined by the Supreme Court of the United States. There's no law that grants qualified immunity. It's a court ruling by SCOTUS. And they make some good decisions once in a while, but not all the time. But anyway, folks, I'm gonna wrap it up now. Please help us reach out to Meeker County. Help us reach out to Kandiyohi County. But they can't pack the courts. They keep talking about packing the courts, but they can't pack the courts. That's not how it works. And it's fear mongering. When you hear people on the right talk about them wanting to pack the courts, they're trying to cause fear. They're trying to cause fear so that people will vote for them so that they can keep the courts. The courts are as dangerous whether they're left leaning or right leaning. We don't need conservative judges or leftist judges. We need neutral judges. We need judges who we don't know anything about what their politics are. Period. And that's part of the problem, is that we get people that are so fired up. We got to get the right president in so they can put the person that we agree with to be a person on SCOTUS. And that's where danger comes in. That's where the biggest danger is. Thank you, David. Once again, mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. Well, I don't think we're done for, Teresa. I don't think that we've lost all hope. Like, I'm not so completely black-pilled that I'm going to tell you that it's over. I think we can pull this back from the brink, but it's what my channel is all about. It's what my shows are all about. We have to be Act-Localist. We have to start getting people to understand things like the doctrine of nullification. I'm working on bringing people on to talk about nullification. If you guys haven't heard of the 10th Amendment Center, if you haven't heard of the Institute for Justice, you need to start researching the Institute for Justice and the 10th Amendment Center. We have to talk about things like nullification. Have to talk about nullification at the city level, the county level, the state level, the federal level. We have to talk about what we can do to protect the cities from the counties and the counties from the state and the state from the federal government and federal state over and over and over again. Stand up and say no to unconstitutional things and say, we don't care what you do. You can't make us enforce this. We're not going to enforce it. And if you can't get them to do it, then you practice nullification on your own. If your city tells you have to have a permit to have chickens, say, I'm not getting a permit to have chickens. Well, you need to have a permit to have a dog. Why do I need permission to have a dog? Well, you need permission to have to put shingles on your roof. Why? That's how we make a change. You would like to talk about Convention of the States? I would love to have somebody come on and talk about Convention of the States. But the Convention of the States has its own problems too. You have to be very careful about the tools that you use, because the tools that you can use to affect the change that you want can be used by your opponents to affect the change that they want. And what you can do to pass a law can also then that law be turned against you. So these things, we have to be having these conversations, Teresa. I love when you come in and interact. if Walz is picked as vice president, do you think we're even more screwed? No, I don't think we can be any more screwed with Walz as vice president than we would be if it was Kamala Harris and Jack Black. But once again, it's all about local activism and getting people at the local level to do the right things, which is why we're talking about Kandiyohi County and the sheriff there and Wilmer and the police department there in Meeker County, and whether or not we're going to get them to actually prosecute this dirty deputy. This deputy needs to be prosecuted. And to have that happen, to make that happen, it's on you guys. You have got to help me help these people over there to make that happen. Please, I'm begging you. If nothing else, share this out. Like I said, what we know so far is all rumor because they won't release any details. This deputy needs to be exposed. We need to know what he did. We need to know what's going on. Because what I'm hearing is that he was drinking and that there was alcohol involved and that he refused to test. That should be enough to remove him from law enforcement for the rest of his life. No reform for him. No more you get to go out and be a cop after you've served your time. Should be done. And I think we can all agree on that. Folks, once again, thanks for tuning in. Please share this out. Please make sure this goes out on social media. Please, if you would, make sure this goes to Wilmer's Police Department's social media page. They blocked me. They blocked me after I released my Foost. They blocked me after my first report on Flatten. So I'm going to be addressing that as well, because that is a violation of the Constitution according to the Supreme Court. So there, I'm going to side with Supreme Court on that one. But share this with Wilmer, share this with Meeker, share this with Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office, share this with your friends, share this with the person who doesn't have social media, send it to them in a text message, bring them over to your house and watch it. I don't care how you get this out there. We need to get attention brought to this. And I'm going to say this one more time for the gentleman who kind of sparked all of this for me. That really helped me see this and get really mad. Mr. Gilbert, you are the hero. Because you stood up for yourself. And what they did to you was egregious, it was criminal, and it was disgusting. And I will stand by you and stand with you in whatever way I can going forward. I'm in this for the long haul with you, Mr. Gilbert. And the others that have concerns about things that are happening to them, have happened to them, or continuing to happen to them, I will do everything I can to help you. Now help me help you, and let's take Deputy Flatten down. And if we can, let's take the entire command structure, the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office, down while we're at it. And then let's see if we can do something about the Wilmer Police Department as well. Join the channel memberships, folks. You pick the top tier, you will become a producer of the show, and I will be incredibly thankful to you for that. I cannot thank you guys enough for tuning in. So far tonight, we have had, what's our total? I've had 3 new subscribers to the channel, 1 new channel member, and wow, I've got 2 new channel members today, actually. That's amazing. And so far, we've had 106 people watch this while we're live streaming. So don't let numbers fool you. People are seeing this, so please help me get this out. and share it with wherever you can, whoever you can. If you know other accountability people that you think should hear this story, please send it to them. I would love it if somebody else would take the story and run with it. No one ever talked to me again, but they talked to somebody like Lackluster or Here's the Deal or Civil Rights Attorney. Anybody like if anybody else who's got a bigger channel than me can do a lot more, have a lot more impact than I can. I'm like, this is never about me. It's always about you guys. So thank you for joining the channel as channel members. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. Please hit the like button if you haven't yet. Come back and watch this again or put it on in the background afterwards to help keep it in the algorithm. Come back and comment after it's done processing to help with the algorithm. And thank you so much for being willing to take the risk and act locally. As my friend Monica made this sign for me now, I've had it for a little over a year. She made this by hand. Fight for your liberty. It is yours. Fight for your freedom. It belongs to you. And until next time, Sic Semper. Tyrannus.
We are going for liftoff in T-30. Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.